Next morning, the 24th of October, we were up bright and early and eager to really get moving after our very slow day yesterday. We took a small local boat across the 10 k's from Don Det to Nakasong village on the mainland. Last night we met a group of travellers who had just come down by boat from Paksay to Dong Dan Island. We knew for sure that we had to get to Don Cone to catch the Paksay ferry. It was a beautiful trip this morning through the lush, verdant islands. We passed a ferry boat carrying a large bus, possibly tourists visiting the beautiful islands. During the 1 hour trip, we seemed to take on quite a lot of water, and I was kept quite busy on the baler. We soon arrived at Don Cone and got ourselves unloaded. The Don Cone guest house confirmed that the Paksay boat would leave at 6 o'clock tomorrow. After a few beers, we decided to take a boat around the island and check things out.
Cheers, boys. Okay. We knew it'd be a tough trip. Somebody's got to do it.
At Cone, we found a group of French travellers who had arrived yesterday on the boat from Paksay and playing them back over the TV. The wonders of the digital age. By late afternoon, a group of travellers had just arrived on the Paksay boat. Things were looking even better. We hitched a ride back to the guest house on an iron buffalo. That evening, we sat by the riverbank, and Uncle Brian read from Milton Osborne's book, The River Road to China. From Krache to Don Con, the French really had a hard time. To a spectacular sunrise. After another day with no progress yesterday, we just had to get some miles done today. We were full of hope. We waited, and we waited. Until finally, at around 11 o'clock, we gave up and hired a small local boat for the 7-hour journey to Champasak. The Paksay boat still remains a mystery. Maybe it only runs one way. It wasn't much of a boat, but with all the time lost, we were really pleased to be moving again. We tried not to think of the elusive Paksay ferry and got ourselves settled in for the long haul. We soon left the islands of the Sipan Dom behind us, and the river became wide with great vistas of the mountains in the distance and the tropical jungle in the foreground. We passed one village where the local boys were out practicing with their dragon boat. The end of October is the time of the water festival in Laos. As we travelled along, we could see from the banks that the water had receded many metres. The villagers were busy planting vegetables in the fertile silt. Another dramatic sunset as we continued our slow journey to Champasak. We would arrive in the dark around 7 p.m, tired, stiff, but pleased to have made progress at last. Our plan for the morning was to go out to the old Angkor ruins at Wat Po. We hired a tuk-tuk, and after gassing up, we hit the road. The ruins are about 8 kilometres out of Champasak. As we approached, we could see the huge phallic-shaped peak of the mountain above the temple. It's amazing to think that Angkor Empire could stretch this far north. Although the ruins of Wat Po and not as grand as that of Angkor, the setting is absolutely fantastic, and also no tourists. Amazingly, Wat Phu predates Angkor, as the Khmer civilization shifted from here to Cambodia. Originally, the complex was a Hindu temple, and there is still a beautiful stone shrine carving of the three Hindu gods Brahma, Shiva and Vishnu. 140 years ago, the French also visited Wat Pho and were also very impressed by the stone statue of the Hindu gods of Brahman, Shiva and Vishnu. Frenchmen had arrived at Champasak in early September 1866 and stayed there for the remainder of the wet season, finally leaving to journey further north in late December. Back to Champasak, we stopped off to help with the rice harvest.
Don't cut your finger. That's not my finger I'm worried about, Uncle Don.
2 in the afternoon, we were on the water again. Champasak was a nice sleepy little place and had once been an independent kingdom. We would learn more about this when we arrived at Paksay. We managed to rehire the boat we had from Don Cone to Champasak for the 2-hour journey up to Paksay. This time we had some company as well. 3 backpackers, a British couple and an Aussie girl agreed to supply the beer for the passage. That's a deal the uncles could not refuse. By 4 o'clock we approached the new Mekong bridge connecting Thailand to Paksay. Loaded and paid off our boatman. We hired a tuk-tuk and headed for the Champasak Palace Hotel. Palace, do I hear you say? Yes, a real palace. The last king of Champasak, King Bon Om, built the joint in 1968. Unfortunately, he had to make a speedy exit to France in 1974 when the Pathet Lao decided that there was no place for a king in the new order. Now it's been finished and developed into a hotel by Thai investors.
Anyway, I called Warren, and Warren gave me the phone number of Mr. Davi the boatie, and the garlic boat has arrived, and it was a rough trip. The river is low and rocky, and it could well take us 2 days to get back. But anyway, I spoke to him, and he is expecting us on the wharf at 7 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yep. Okay.
Right, over a few cold beer lows, we took stock of our situation. Looking at the map, we certainly had not gone far in our 3 days in Laos, and there was a long, long way to go. However, on the bright side, the garlic boat was here, ready and waiting to take us north. All in all, not too bad. After a 6 o'clock breakfast, we said goodbye to the Champasak Palace Hotel, climbed aboard a tuk-tuk and headed for the wharf.
So today is a journey into the unknown as we leave from Paksay 7 o'clock in the morning, bound for Sawanaket. We expect that this trip will take something like 36 hours with an overnight spot somewhere yet unknown. This boat is small.
Right.
So what's the time? We're off at
7:34 a.m.
7:34 a.m.
The breeze coming in already.
Bit of a wobbly boat.
Mate Warren Hoy had arranged the garlic boat up in Sawanaket. Originally, they were going to take us from Sawanaket to Vientiane, but Warren couldn't find any boat at all that would take us from Paksay to Sawanaket, so he sent the garlic boat down to pick us up. It's called the garlic boat because normally she plied across from Sawanaket to the Thai side of the Mekong carrying garlic, a distance of about 1 kilometre. I doubt if the Gaelic boat had ever been on a long journey. About half an hour out of Puxay, and Mr. Don the spotter was starting to signal to Davie, rapids ahead. We looked in amazement and in some degree of fear as we saw the surging waters ahead. We were quite relieved to be through our first major rapids. I guess that it's not the height of the rapids so much as the pure volume of water swirling around, and also really not knowing what is underneath. We continued on the edge of our seats for another hour before we finally stopped for lunch.
He knew when to gun the engine, didn't he?
The good news is there appears to have ample power in reserve.
Despite our witty banter at lunchtime, I think we were all a little bit shaken up by the morning's rapids and wondered what we had ahead of us. After resting the bones, we continued on. This time, there were large rock formations along the river. In mid-afternoon, we came across quite a large village and went ashore to buy fuel. We walked around the village, and Uncle Brian and Uncle Dave gave the local school children a lesson in New Zealand geography. We also found out from the villagers that there were some serious rapids just ahead and that we should proceed with the utmost caution. We passed men building some kind of statue. The saffron robe would indicate perhaps something religious. We continued our journey up through the fast-flowing water. In some places, Mr. Don the spotter directed the boat towards smoother water in the lee of large rock outcrops, with the occasional small waterfall. A particularly bad stretch of white water, and stopped and clambered ashore to get a better assessment of things. Just then, a local boat came hurtling down through the rapids, the passengers giving us a nervous wave as they flew by. Don the spotter went looking for an easier way through towards the Lao shore. He signalled to Davie to gun it, and we charged towards the surging waters.
Really fun, and I think he's going to gun it at the moment. There's a bit of a swim patch coming up here, so I think he'll turn it up in a moment. Oh, just hit something then.
He's gunning it now.
Here it goes.